Even if I was optimally prepared, I would start second guessing everything, questioning things that I wasn't questioning before, questioning finger positions, and starting to ask myself if I really remembered everything. And once you start messing with your head, then it's game over. Welcome to another episode of the Spanish Guitar Mastermind, where we take a look at the strategies, the mindset, and daily habits of accomplished Spanish guitarists and musicians so that we can all learn from their triumphs and mistakes so that hopefully we can save some time on our own journeys as well. So today's episode is going to be a solo podcast because I wanted to talk about something that plagued me and really affected me for years as a musician. And I think there's a lot of people out there that can probably relate, especially if you're at the beginning of your journey. So what am I talking about? What I'm talking about can affect anybody from amateur musicians to professional musicians alike. It can affect you if you're just playing for a couple people in your living room, or even if you're playing to a full concert hall full of hundreds or thousands of people. So what am I talking about? Performance anxiety, aka stage fright for some. So coming from being an introvert in my teenage years, which is when I started learning guitar at first, I would have intense bouts of nerves when my family would ask me to play at get-togethers and family events. And flash forward to when I started playing professionally and doing my first concerts. The nerves were really high-end and uncontrollable at times, even when I started playing for wedding ceremonies. I remember having music that I already had down completely, but I would really start psyching myself out in the wrong direction, just getting nervous about ruining somebody's perfect day and getting some bouts of performance anxieties. So speaking as somebody who used to struggle with a lot of intense bouts of nerves and performance anxiety in multiple types of situations, but was able to overcome it throughout the years, I feel like I have a lot of great tips for you guys to overcome it. So before we get into this, I do gotta say that feeling a little nervous, having some stage jitters before you jump on the stage or play for some friends or family, or if you're playing for your first concert, that's normal. You're always going to have a little bit of nervousness, and that's pretty normal and healthy as long as you can control it. What I'm talking about here today is when you really start psyching yourself out and getting in your head, and it really gets uncontrollable to the point where it really affects your performance or blocks out your memory completely. So first, I think you need to assess where your anxiety is coming from. I think there's two main places to look at. On one side, you can look at your rational fears, which maybe stem from not practicing enough. Maybe you didn't prepare enough. You don't have everything memorized. Maybe if you're playing with an ensemble, you guys didn't practice together as an ensemble enough. So if you're not feeling prepared, then obviously your nerves are going to start eating you up because you do have some rational fears to think about. Now, there's some uncontrollable factors as well. Maybe you prepared, but you make it to a stage where everything's very unorganized. The sound isn't great, and it's just chaotic. Then, of course, your nerves are going to start eating you up, and it's going to start taking your mind off of the music and the performance. If you're a performing musician, then everyone's had that one horrible sound man who just throws the whole night off. So those are all rational fears that can mess with your head and start messing with your nerves. And then depending on your state of mind, your mindset, how bad that is going to get. And on the other hand, you have your illegitimate or irrational fears that could be playing into it. Maybe you did practice and rehearse with the group. You're feeling super solid. You have everything memorized. But the night of the performance, you start questioning everything and just asking yourself irrational questions that just mess with your head. Maybe you see somebody in the audience that you really want to impress, and then you start questioning your performance before you even get out there and perform. So those are basically the two main origins of performance anxiety that I think we first need to look at. Now, obviously, if your nerves and anxiety are coming from rational fears, then I'm sure you can answer what the first step would be. It's to be as prepared as possible. Practice your music. Practice as an ensemble. That's the first thing. Do everything in your power to not have to stress about that or let your nerves eat you up because you're not feeling prepared. That would be step number one. So the second thing that I mentioned with rational fears would be the uncontrollable factors. That is your setting, your stage, your sound. Now, if you're playing in a casual setting like in somebody's house, that could be something as simple as just playing on a chair that you're not used to and that throwing you off. If you're playing on a stage, it could be the same thing, whatever you're sitting on, or just lights in your face that you're not used to. But one of the biggest factors on stage, especially if you're a performing musician, I'm sure you've dealt with this, can be the sound. Now, some of the worst experiences that I've ever had on a stage have been thank you to a sound guy. Now, there's many unqualified sound guys that just don't know how to work with Spanish guitar. So definitely having the sound off can throw you off and get to your nerves. Now that's where you have to have everything else set up optimally so that you can really just focus on your music and not let that distract you and get to your nerves and then eventually eat you up and interfere with your performance. Now what I really want to talk about is the other set of factors, the irrational factors. That's what really plagued me throughout the years. Now, anytime, whether I was playing for family, at a private event, or if I was playing for a concert, that's what would really get to me. Even if I was optimally prepared, I would start second guessing everything, questioning things that I wasn't questioning before, questioning finger positions and starting to ask myself if I really remembered everything. And once you start messing with your head, then it's game over. So your brain's just doing what it does best, looking for danger and risks and trying to protect you. And once you start asking yourself irrational questions which don't help at all, your brain's just going to follow in that cue and then just go down a horrible rabbit hole. Once you go down that rabbit hole, your brain starts going into fight or flight mode, and that's why many people start having memory slips, because it starts shutting down certain parts of our brain. I had some of the worst bouts of memory slips before because of this. I would start questioning everything, and before I know it, I would just have a door shut in my brain on phrases that I've played hundreds of times that I should know like the back of my hand. But the brain's a funny thing. The brain will totally cut it out and black it out, apparently so that the brain can focus its power on solving other risks since it thinks that we're in danger. So in these moments in the past, which have been horrific for me, I've either had to start inventing little phrases or improvising on classical pieces or doing whatever I can to save myself. Now, I've been able to save myself many times, but I did have a couple horrible bouts on a big stage at my university when I was studying where my memory just completely slipped. So just to share one personal story, one of my worst bouts of performance anxiety and one of my worst memories is my junior year in university when I was studying classical guitar. There was a recital that I had to play a couple pieces. I had to play a couple pieces by Bach, a couple selections from a lute suite. And if you know anything about Bach, you'll know that his pieces are very elaborately composed, a lot of counterpoints, and for me, they were like tongue twisters for your hand and for your mind. Very advanced pieces of music. I did my best to try to learn it at the time, but knowing what I know now, I could have definitely been more prepared and practiced a lot more intensely and more focused. Anyways, come day of the performance, when I jump up on that stage, besides not being 100% completely prepared, I don't think that's what really got to me. What really got to me was that once I was up on that stage, I remember looking at my neck and I started asking myself all these questions. I started re-questioning myself. Is the next phrase that's coming up on the 5th fret, do I have to jump up to this fret? Which note is this? I started asking all this while I started playing the piece, and that is the last thing that you want to do. So flash forward to, I think it was literally only like 4 lines into the piece. 4 lines into the piece, and my memory just shut, closed the door. It's like they closed the door right on my mind of the piece. So when I made it there, I just had to go, I rewinded, tried to restart it from a line back. Same thing, I get to that point, again, my memory just shut down and just didn't want to allow me to recall anything else. I looped around 3 times, and the 3rd time around, I realized that it was impossible. That door wasn't opening anymore, and I had to just get up, bow, and just walk off the stage. And I think there was a lot of confused people, but it just is what it is, and it was a big learning experience for me. So here's the most unfortunate thing about that experience. Being at an institution, at a university that I was supposed to be leaving with all this education about performing and about playing guitar and being a musician, nobody really wanted to acknowledge the fact that because of performance anxiety and letting my mind not be in an optimal state and in harmony with the music and focused on the music instead of asking questions, nobody wanted to address that, or nobody even thought to address that. Everyone just blamed it right away on me not being 100% prepared, not knowing the music well enough, which again, that is a huge part of it, but It doesn't matter how prepared you are. If this isn't right and your focus isn't there, or you have any type of distractions, then it's game over for anyone. So how do you conquer these bouts of nerves or high performance anxiety? Now, if you ask any qualified musician or qualified instructor, they're most likely going to tell you what I already mentioned: to be as prepared as possible, have your music memorized, and repeat over and over and over until it feels just like second nature to play any of the music. Now, yes, that's correct. That's step number one. But what these people don't talk about or don't ever mention is that if your mindset isn't right, or you don't know how to control your mindset correctly in these situations, then it doesn't matter how prepared you are. It's going to be game over. So here's my main tips to conquer performance anxiety. Now, first, keep in mind that your body and your mind are very connected. So the first thing that's going to be affected once you start getting nervous and start getting all these thoughts in your head is going to be your body. You're going to start to tighten up, to clench up. And that's the worst thing you could do as a guitarist or any type of musician, to have a tight, tense body, especially once it makes it to your fingers. Once it makes it to your fingers, then it's going to make your performing just start to suffer. And then once it starts to suffer, you're going to start to hear your own mistakes or feel like you're not performing optimally. That's going to go to your head. Then once you start to just going to create this vicious cycle, you get more nervous, gets you more intense, more tight, and it's just going to be a little cycle getting you worse and worse until you eventually start blocking out your memories and just having a horrible performance. So very first thing you need to do, if you're already feeling those nerves, take an assessment of your body. Take a very deep breath, a couple deep breaths, and just relax your body. Remind yourself that you're going to be playing nice and loose, no tension. That would be the number one thing I tell you. The second piece of advice is for my mindset. So one of the biggest problems that I used to have with performance anxiety is that I would start to have these conversations in my head while I was performing, which is the last thing that you want to do. I would start questioning things, saying, am I playing on the 5th fret or the 7th fret? Am I playing this note or that note? And then it became this conversation instead of performing and just being focused on the music. So one thing that I've done so that I can just force myself to be at one with the music, it's kind of like a meditation, basically. When I start performing a piece, I basically just start humming it along in my head so that I don't let any questions or internal conversations start to play out in my mind. Whether it be negative or positive, it doesn't matter. You don't want to have any type of conversations. You just want to be at one with the music. So try that. Try humming along or just singing the melody in your head with the music so that something's going on, so that you're connected with the music and you're basically just forcing yourself not to allow any other thoughts come into your mind. Just like when you're meditating, if you ever meditated, and I'm not huge on meditating. It's something that I do want to get into. But when you're meditating, they say just to not block out your mind, because that's a little difficult for some people, just to block out your mind, because then eventually thoughts want to start creeping in. But what you have to do is focus on something. So when you're meditating, a lot of people like to just have you focus on your breath work, and just completely focus on that, or your heart, or that type of thing. Same thing with the music. All you could do is hum along with the music, be at one with the music. Now, number 3, more is a mindset perspective. Whether you're playing for 2 people in your living room or you're playing to a full concert hall, always remember that you're playing for them. You're there for them. You're there to entertain them, to culture them. You're there to give to them. Make it more about them and less about you. If it's all about you, then yes, all it is about how good your performance is. But just take some of the stress off of yourself and make it for them. Remember that we're giving our audiences a gift. We're giving them the gift of music and sharing our talent with them. So make it about them. Lighten up. And then lastly, just remember, it is just music. Yes, it's a gift. It's a beautiful art. But it's not a life or death situation. We just have to lighten up and remember that we're privileged to be able to do this and to play for people. So keep that in mind. So just to recap, those are my 3 main tips. Number 1, be very aware of your body. Relax before the performance. Take a few deep breaths. Remind yourself that you're not going to be tense. You're not going to be tight. You're going to be nice and relaxed. Very natural position. As a guitarist, make sure my fingers aren't tense and I'm not overexerting anything. Number 2, make sure that whatever the piece that you're playing, sing along with it in your head. so that there's no space for any type of internal conversation. You're just one with the music, humming along, singing along. And number 3, remember that it's for the audience. It's for the people that you're playing for, even if it's for just one person. Remember, you're giving them a gift. It's not all about you, it's about giving to them. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Spanish Guitar Mastermind. I wanted to share this message today because it's something that I've struggled with for years. And I know there's some of you out there that might be going through the same thing. So if you're struggling with this, try these 3 tips out. And if you still need any more help, feel free to shoot me a DM or shoot me a message, and I'm happy to chat about it. So take care, guys.